demographic group in particular, but she really did seem to underachieve amongst African-American males, especially young African-American males.
I mean, it just makes me think about Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, the former president, and the very strong appeals that they made. Michelle Obama said, you know, don't let your husband or boyfriend's rage dictate your vote. President Obama talked about bringing out brothers and scolding them. That does not seem to have been a strategy that worked.
Darren, did the Fox News voter analysis track with what you saw with raw vote as you went around the states?
Yes. You know, there were a couple. What we're doing early on is we get this early vote from Indiana and Kentucky. It allows us to kind of figure out, is the FNVA performing consistent with the data? There were a couple states where Trump overperformed a bit. Florida was one. We were a little concerned that we might be overestimating Trump's performance in rural areas. But the more data we got, the more that didn't seem to be the case. It seemed like he was basically hitting what we thought he would hit.
I mean, we've got the brain here. Did anybody else have a question for Darren?
I'm curious about immigration and what you've seen in terms of how much that played into the votes in some of these states.
Well, I think the one thing we can say is that it didn't repel people. In particular, there was some talk about the Hispanic vote coming home over the issue of immigration. That did not seem to happen much at all. You know, the FNVA suggested, I think it was 40% with Trump's performance amongst Latinos. That ended up being, I think, within 13 or 14 points of Harris's. I mean, if you'd showed me data before the election and said, you know, that he's going to get 15% of the African-American vote, 40% of the Hispanic vote, I'd say that's an awfully tough night for a Democrat to win an election.
There's some reporting that Trump has won Erie County, Pennsylvania. Is that square with anything you understand?
I think it was on sort of a knife's edge. I don't know if Bill's got the latest data, but
it was a hope here.
It's part of her hope, right?
Went back to the Trump team, and right now, currently, just to keep you guys up to date, he leads it by a point in 1.4, which is a little less than 2,000 raw votes.
And it's 99%
left out. How much is that? 99% in, or 90? What did you say?
90, statewide 90%. Darren, I got a question for you. When you think about the blue wall in the upper Midwest, when we were at the convention in Milwaukee in July, it ended on a Thursday. On a Friday, we had that national computer glitch, and all the airports were shut down. So all the delegates and all the journalists and all the campaign folks were stranded at the airport in Milwaukee. And I was still thinking at the time about, you know, why did I just see Kid Rock? And why did I see Hulk Hogan? And why did I see Dana White? And I went to the campaign, I said, what's going on there? Because it was men. It was white men. And they said, we notice in the upper Midwest, at the time they were thinking about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio to a lesser degree, and Pennsylvania. That's what they were thinking about. And they said, we noticed that there was a certain percentage of white men who voted in 2016. They sat out 2020, and we're trying to win them back. Is there evidence that those white males in those upper Midwest states did that tonight?
There was sort of a rule of thumb we were adopting that, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier in conversation with y'all, but that, you know, the gender gap is a double-edged sword. The gender gap can help or hurt depending upon, you know, the absolute level of support. We were looking at 55%. In other words, if Trump was hitting 55% with men, that was a good sign. If Harris was hitting 55% with women, that was a good sign. And in the upper Midwest states, he was getting closer to that sort of magic number than she was. So when you call it the bro strategy or whatever, it seems to have paid some dividends up there. I mean, we're still waiting, but, you know, it's looking pretty good for him.
So we can definitively say that the poll that we don't talk about in Iowa was kind of off the ballot registry.
I love Ann Seltzer. She's a giant and a pioneer in our field. I think, you know, what we were looking at, ironically, was not so much the top line in that race, but what Seltzer had said was that senior women were breaking away from Trump over the abortion issue. And I think our friend Sean Trende had a really good observation where he said that may be true, but it may not help Harris, because that's something that could occur in Iowa where abortion was a hot issue, but might not occur nationally in other states where abortion wasn't as salient.
We have to let you go, but really quickly, what's happening in Minnesota?
That's what I was going to ask you, that question.
Minnesota, why is that still?
They have done what sometimes they do in states. They've stopped counting votes.
Really?
And we're kind of close
All
to.
we've been through with that.
After all we've been through?
We're at a level where we're close to statistical significance, but it's not quite there yet, and there are still.
Tim Walz in charge of that?
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
rumor has it.
We have to let you go because you
Wow.
have some more data crunching to do. We appreciate you coming
Thank you,
by.
Darren.
Thanks,
You
Darren.
guys help a lot.
coming
Good job.
by.
Very nice to see you guys. Thank you.
Let's check in with Aisha Hasni at the
Let's
Trump
do that.
campaign headquarters. Aisha?
Hey, you guys. Well, all signs here are pointing to perhaps imminent remarks from the former president shortly. The biggest dead giveaway was a short while ago. Somebody went onto the stage right behind me and put up the glass for the teleprompter. So perhaps somebody will be speaking to the crowd here shortly, and that might be the former president. We've got eyes outside, our security details outside watching to see if the motorcade arrives from Mar-a-Lago. I did get a video from someone at the Mar-a-Lago party a short while ago, and folks there were jubilant and cheering and clapping. They had Fox News on the screen. They were watching as we were calling states and more races for the former president. The excitement here is climbing every minute, and people here are anxiously awaiting to see if the former president shows up here tonight and perhaps gives a victory speech. Back to you.
Well, Aisha,
So
thanks.
thank you very much.
Cough drop or-
Head back there. If the former President Trump is about to take the stand and speak there. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. 1 a.m. in New York. Polls have just closed in Alaska. The Fox News decision desk says it is too early to call. Trump has a lead in our Fox News voter analysis, so we will get you back to Alaska when we have a little more data to report there.
And there you see 248 to 216, the Electoral College map. We are waiting on the blue wall, which could be a red wall. You just heard from Darren Shaw. I think that data and the way he laid it out there and their decision making really kind of lifts the curtain to how these guys operate based on our Fox News voter analysis, which again was 120,000 voters, that a rolling poll, and then the raw vote total that they came in. Alex Hoff is in Pennsylvania. We'll check in on the ground there. Alexandria.
Hey, good to be with you. Yeah, the crowd here in Bucks County, they are excited by some trends they are seeing, not necessarily expecting to result tonight, Pennsylvania's results, and the count is historically slow. It took 4 days in 2020, but the Commonwealth Secretary does believe that it's going to be faster this time. New technology, more training will come into all this. Now, looking at Philadelphia, both the Trump and the Harris campaigns, they're saying they're outperforming there, but Team Trump feels that this could be good news for them because there are pockets of support inside of South Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia, and there is a saying that goes that Republicans can gauge how well they are doing in the state by how much they are losing Philadelphia by. Simply, it cuts into the margins that Democrats need. And here in Bucks County, they're seeing themselves on the screen right now. It means a lot. If he were to win this county, Bucks County, I mean, that would be the first time a Republican presidential candidate has taken this county since 1988. And these suburbs of Philadelphia, this is what pushed Biden over the edge in 2020. Harris needs to do well in these counties if she stands to have a chance of taking the state, guys. Brett, Martha?
Alex,
thank
thanks.
you. So let's go to Bill and see, what are you cooking up over there, Bill?
You know, I was just looking at New York. You know, we heard so much about MSG and the insult comic about the Puerto Rican joke. And, you know, Trump, you know, New York's his home, right? And now living in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. But just look at this. I'm going to go ahead and use the slide bar and just, okay, 8 years ago when he's running against Hillary Clinton, this is his margin in New York, all right? 37.5 compared to almost 59 for Hillary Clinton. And then against Joe Biden, it was, what? Was it? Oh my gosh. It was 0.3 of a point, all right? And now we come to 2020 and see the numbers on the board here. That's a pretty decent performance. So we're just getting some insight here in the New York City. He did well over 40% of the vote here in New York as well. One thing I was checking out here, guys, this is the number, right? Path to 270. I guess in theory right now, if you were to close out, you're at 248, if you were to close out Pennsylvania, and even though Alaska has ranked choice voting, which could take a while to post a number here, nonetheless, that would put him right at the number of 270. So even around the blue wall, it's possible too. That goes back to the argument that we've been talking about for some time now, that Trump had more paths to the Oval Office than Harris did. Let's go check on Pennsylvania one more time here, and we'll see. Okay, it's holding steady at 3.5. 90% of the estimated vote out there is now reporting here. In Michigan, the blue wall, 6.3, so that number is stuck a little bit here. Estimated somewhere, maybe 40% of the vote still missing there in Michigan and Wisconsin. Maybe we get some more numbers in. It got 85% of the vote in here, and Trump's holding on to this 4.2 advantage in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, they take a lot of pride in what they do. They want to get the vote out quickly. Maybe Milwaukee notwithstanding, but the rest of the state, that's their idea. So we could get that in maybe a little more as we go into what, the 2 a.m. hour? Are we going to 2 a.m. or 3? What are we doing here? Arizona sticking here at 0.7. What's that?
Just keep going.
Okay, you got it. This is Nevada, so we're starting to get our first numbers in from Nevada. For any of the nerds and geeks out there that have been deep in the weeds about the early voting, you've been watching Nevada. And Nevada's been a pretty good marker there for Republicans. This is a quick count here now. It's saying 75% of the vote is in, and Trump's got a firm lead at 3.4 points, roughly just a tad under 35,000 votes. Clark County, Las Vegas, 70% of the votes in the Silver State here all come from Nevada. Let's see what's happening right now. Okay, Harris, just a tick over 50.2 with 80%. I want to go comparison's sake, 8 years ago, why not, right? In Nevada, I don't know what this number is. We'll find out together, okay? So Hillary Clinton did 2 points better than Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, okay, did even better, 3.5 over what Kamala Harris is putting up right now. So it appears if you're in the Trump camp, that's a pretty good number right now, just shy of 51% in Nevada early on. Here's Karl Rove's favorite place in the world. This is Washoe County, right, Karl? Right now, it's close, right? 0.2 points. What happened with Biden? Was it close? Yeah, pretty close, but Biden won the county. So in all likelihood, Trump's got a chance to flip this if it holds up right now. Super slim and more vote to come in, but Nevada is looking good too. And now you start to wonder, how high does this number go on the Electoral College?
Yeah, New York Times needle is now at greater than 95% and likely to win the popular vote is what they have. Well, let's check in. Let's go out to Vegas. Jeff Paul is live in Las Vegas. Jeff, what's happening?
Well, a lot of excitement here and optimism at the Sam Brown Watch Party. He's, of course, the Republican candidate trying to unseat the Democratic incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen. And just a few moments ago, when Bill was talking about Nevada, you heard a lot of cheers here from the crowd at the Sam Brown Watch Party, just knowing some of those initial numbers. It took nearly 3 hours to finally get some of those numbers. We're hoping to get another batch in the coming hours, but Nevada has an interesting law where it's, you can vote right up until the 7 o'clock hour, and if you're in line, they'll let you vote, and in order to release those results, they wait until the very last person in line votes. That person, it took 2 hours and 48 minutes, so still a very long night ahead of us, but for the folks here at the Sam Brown Watch Party, a lot of optimism in the air.
All right, Jeff Paul in Las Vegas. Jeff, thanks.
So our panel is still with us, and we have some new folks that are here as well. Kevin McCarthy is joining us. Karl Rove is back. Juan Williams is here. Great to have all of you with us. Kevin McCarthy, let me start with you. Give us an update on what your overall take on the night so far, and then maybe drill down on some of what you're seeing in these House situations as well.
The Senate Republicans did an extraordinary job. They surpassed all expectations. President Trump is on his way. And I think President Trump is going to help the Republicans hold the House, but it's going to be very narrow, maybe even narrower than we have.
But you think they could do it?
Maybe even narrower than you have now, you said.
Yeah, it may be exactly the same or maybe smaller. look at the 2 seats I said at the very beginning of the night. Watch Pennsylvania 7 and Pennsylvania 8. I think we're going to pick those both up. You said North Carolina 1. We're probably going to lose that by 1 point. She did an extraordinary job.
Wow.
Then you look at Maine. We're ahead there. But we have some incumbents that have fallen in New York. California's just in now, but don't read those numbers yet, because it's just the first part coming in. We're going to have to wait some time to see where we're there. Arizona, we've got a couple of incumbents in trouble. Bacon's coming back in Omaha, maybe there. If we hold the House, if this is a trifecta, the credit goes to President Trump. But it also fundamentally means something different. You can do reconciliation when it comes to tax reform. So you don't need 60 votes in the Senate. Having the Senate as large as he is, he's going to get the cabinet that he wants. The other thing that's going to happen is you're not going to have a Hakeem Jeffries that's going to try to impeach him every single week. So America's going to see ability to govern. And if Republicans take this moment in time to not play games and focus on the issues, they can grow it the next time. Otherwise, it's going to be very competitive in 2 years.
But Juan Williams, if it's as big as we think it could be, we obviously haven't made these calls yet, but it's trending that way, and the pathway for her to win is getting narrower and narrower. Isn't it not a mandate? And Hakeem Jeffries and the thought of impeaching with what we're seeing tonight seems like wouldn't be the right move.
Well, I think the Democrats are, well, dispirited at this moment, and I think that the likelihood, as we've pointed out, is that Trump will be the president. And I think that, for me, talking to people like Darren and political professionals around, no one anticipated the size of this mandate, as you call it. I think that there's even recriminations now among Democrats as to Biden and whether Biden should have dropped out earlier or Biden should have stayed. Would a white male have done better? Obviously, Trump has defeated 2 women and now a black woman. So there's all of these questions. But to my mind, it seems to me incredible that a guy who led an insurrection against the United States government is going potentially now, you know, like a phoenix, going back into the Oval Office. It's unbelievable.
Well, you have to consider the fact, Juan, that a lot of people didn't think that was an insurrection. They thought it was a riot, but not an insurrection. And had they thought it was really an insurrection, I don't think he could have won.
Well, I don't know.
The exaggerations about that day.
Well, I'm not exaggerating.
About the alleged threat to democracy is a piece of what happened tonight.
Well, I don't think so. I think, again, I'm giving you my perspective.
And I'm giving you mine.
Right, so I listened to you as my friend. But I'm going to tell you what I saw was not only a right in terms of the violence, but a direct action intended to stop certification of a presidential election.
Understood. And we've talked a lot about it.
That's why I said that.
And we've talked a lot about it. The
campaign, clearly. I'm not trying to hype anything.
The campaign ran a lot of ads about it, talked a lot about it, and more, you know, half the country now, Juan is going to say, that is not what I care about. I care about my economy. I care about immigration.
No, see, that's where we differ. I'm not sold on this idea that, oh, it was the cost of eggs. I worry that it was, well, I'm not voting for this woman, or I'm not voting for this black woman.
No, that's not what we see in our data.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you see that? Because a moment ago, Darren was out here and he said, in fact, not only did the bro strategy work, and the bro strategy largely worked along the lines of white men, but that the bro strategy also had some impact in terms of Latino and black men who came along and gave higher percentages.
All right, Carl, weigh in.
I just want to make one more point with Juan. I spoke to Jack Brewer this week, and here's what he said if Trump wins. He said he won because black men felt that Democrats and elites put immigrants before us. Your thoughts on that?
I just think that that's possible. I don't know that for a fact. I think there are tensions between racial groups, and people might feel that. Obviously, you can exploit those tensions, and you can exacerbate them to the point where you can politically benefit from it. Do I think that's the reason he won? No. I think the reason he won is you look at that bro strategy and the white male turnout and white grievance politics that he has used to great success in this country.
Carl,
I think he's trailing his prior 2020 numbers with whites.
Well, you know what? I think that the approach,
Hispanics and black males.
it's not
То який казатиме, що я хочу для всіх рівних прав і зробимо всім життя краще. І голосуйте за мене, тому що я не жінка, а я білий чоловік. І, можливо, це їх приваблювало. І вони думали, що він щось робитиме з цих питань. І дуже велика інфляція, і він щось, і питання міграції, яке теж впливало на їхні громади.
You're distorting my comments, but let me just say
Чекайте. Ми не хочемо сказати, що більшість темних чоловіків не голосували за Дональда Трампа. Ні, я хочу вам сказати, що в рамках цієї стратегії я говорю про жінок, але є чоловіки. Я хочу бути поганим хлопцем, і я думаю, що їм подобається імідж Трампа. І не через це, а вони цим захоплюються. Я дуже здивований з тим, що сталося 6 січня, і я дуже був здивований, що країна так швидко це пережила. І у нас ще будуть інші питання щодо тих, хто підтримував серед чоловіків, чи білі жінки, чи темні жінки використали ці можливості. Я не хочу казати більше на цю тему, насправді. Є ще буде інші питання, тому що далі ніч виборів продовжується. Коли закінчиться процес голосування, залишайтеся з нами.
movement from the Mar-a-Lago Trump group, including former President Trump, who is in a very good position to be the next president this evening as well. is
Ми
heading over to the Trump
виступаємо з Мар-а-Лаго, група підтримки Трампа, і ми вважаємо, що, скоріш за все, Трамп стане наступним президентом.
Well, those guys had two Make America Great hats on.
I saw someone with a really large one. Yeah.
As we look now at
І як ми зараз дивимося
Pennsylvania,
на Пенсильванію,
ladies and gentlemen, we are now projecting that Donald J. Trump will
ми розуміємо, що
Pennsylvania.
Дональд Трамп виграв Пенсильванію. Не будет.
Will win the state of Pennsylvania.
Ми виграли штат Пенсильванію.
That puts him at 267, now officially over the 270. But the path
І у нас, можливо, є 267
he is
голосів, треба 270.
president of the United States in what
Тож він, скоріш за все, стане
the biggest
новим президентом Сполучених Штатів Америки.
ever. I mean, I'm going to say it's more than Grover Cleveland in 1892.
Cleveland was not the subject of a Russia investigation, 2 impeachments, 2 assassination attempts. They have indictments, 91 indictments, convictions, and there is almost nothing that hasn't been thrown at this former president and his
І
team
все було
to go
дуже багато звинувачень було проти Трампа.
in 2020.
І коли він виграв у 2020, коли він програв у 2020 році, і зараз це величезний історичний момент, коли колишній президент Дональд Трамп, йому бракує кількох голосів для того, щоб знову стати президентом.
Headquarters and the cheaters coming up. We're told the former president is there, as well
І
as
тож
Senator J.D. Vance.
і буде колишній президент і новий віце-президент Джей Ді Тремпс.
Looking at where that vote
Венс.
is in Wisconsin, where the vote is in Michigan, where the vote is
Ми дивимося на на виборців у Неваді, у Аризоні.
for Vice President Harris, and just 30,000 feet. What this means.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Richard Nixon was declared dead in 1962. Remember the famous
У
speech on that Nixon
1962 році
could imagine after that failed
ніхто не, коли це було оголошено, ніхто не міг в це повірити.
this to my eye was a man who was facing many more slings and arrows than Nixon had at that time. Hated though he was by the Democrats. This surmounts that. This is an extraordinary comeback.
Dan,
Це неймовірне повернення.
So energetically
Він так енергетично проводив свою президентську кампанію. І я би сказав, що набагато він мав задоволення в цьому. І ми розуміємо, що Джо Байден не міг би брати участь в цьому в цих виборах.
and also I think about Susie Wiles.
І я думаю також про Сузі Вайлз.
Very quiet, does not like the limelight. Chris LaCivita, who works on it.
Вона дуже спокійна. І всі люди підтримували Трампа і працювали настільки багато і серйозно, самовіддано.
The other thing that's on my mind
І
is, you know,
все
last night,
інше, про що я думаю,
rally, Oprah Winfrey said that if Donald Trump is
Опрі Вінфрі сказала, що якщо Дональд
America's just going to fall apart.
Трамп виграє,
True, they'll be surprised
що Америка будуть проблеми, але цього не станеться.
leaving the country as they said they were going to. This is the greatest country, and there will be so many opportunities for lots of deals.
Буде набагато більше можливостей
huge to-do list. Biden and Harris have left.
І Байден і Харріс залишили якийсь безлад.
She talked about having a to-do list. He's got a big to-do list, but he thrives.
І він може зробити це. І він це говорив проти всієї виборчої кампанії. Він готовий робити цю роботу. Якщо це написати як сценарій до фільму, то це не могло б ніколи трапитися в Америці. Я це вже казав, що це неймовірно. І це сьогодні ще раз було підтверджено, чому деякі речі під час виборчої кампанії були зроблені, які не були зрозумілі. Він говорив про можливості
He didn't talk about it in the most wholesome way. Didn't talk about it in the most comprehensive way, but he connected with voters.
Але він про деякі речі не говорив, але він був пов'язаний з виборцями, він до них звертався. І він казав, треба завжди зважувати на американців. Він щось зробив, що ми не робили протягом цього виборчого процесу. І треба про це думати. І ми маємо зауважити на те, що саме американці прийняли рішення цього дня. Дуже важко зрозуміти, як деякі засоби масової інформації це сприймуть. Деякі ЗМІ думали, що це вже було вирішено, що Каміла Харріс виграє вибори. І як вони зараз ці ЗМІ сприйматимуть цю інформацію, це не дуже зрозуміло. Так і є. Йдеться не лише про перемогу у Білому домі. Це кінець старої партії республіканців. І це перше, що він зробив у 2015 році. Поміняв управління партії. І він зробив партію більш практичну партію, робочий клас. І він подумав, як можна виграти, базуючись на цьому. І, можливо, я навіть не знаю, як республіканці взагалі колись зможуть повернутися до старого розуміння партії. І він буде все робити для того, щоб через 4 роки республіканці знову перемогли. І він далі боровся. Якщо ми пригадаємо, що його партія програла у 2018 році, програла президентські вибори у 2020 році, були проблеми також у 2022 році, і незалежно від того, і незалежно від інших проблем, які ставалися з партією в політичному житті, все одно він повернувся. Він був дуже токсичний, так. Але ми маємо розуміти, що Дональд Трамп допоміг і витягнув республіканців. Можна, звісно, провести паралели до 2018 року. У нас є люди, які взяті в Газі, заручники в Газі, є заручники в інших країнах. Але що це означає? Це означає для багатьох людей дуже багато. Це означає багато для робочого класу. Вони хочуть змінити, щоб було змінено політика міграції. Також вони дивляться на питання Ірану. І це час для партії, для демократів, що люди промовили, що люди зробили свій вибір. І дуже багато питань має бути відповідь на багато питань. Але треба визнати, що Трамп виграв і що люди прийняли рішення. І можливо, ми зможемо провести питання нормалізації відносин з Ізраїлем. І також давайте пригадаємо Україну. І що Дональд Трамп щодо цього говорив. І треба знову підкоригувати систему. Якщо ви намагаєтесь зламати американську модель, але слід зазначити, що Дональд Трамп врятував американців, щоб назад привести в центр протягом наступних 4 років. Він врятував всю модель американську, тому що ідея про те, щоб підняти податки ще на 20%, це дуже погана ідея. Тож я можу поїхати в Абу-Дабі, в Женеву, і сказати, що не буде підняття податків і нічого не зміниться. Це дуже важливо, це покращилось. Так працювало існувало протягом останніх 200 років. І якщо відбуваються якісь неправильні рухи, то суспільство само себе, так би мовити, лікує. Зараз тут є інформація з Пенсильванії, і було багато інформації про те, що команди в Пенсильванії не розуміють, що вони роблять, що не зрозуміло, що Ілон Маск робить, особливо про цей $1 мільйон. Казали, що люди того регіону люблять людей, хто хоче зробити багато робочих місць, думає про майбутнє. І вони люблять людей, які можуть керувати. І людина, керівник – це того, кого підтримують. Але, звісно, якщо ти приймаєш лідируючі позиції, то тебе критикують. Our friend down the DA in Los Angeles lost by 22 votes. І в Лос-Анджелесі втратили тільки на 20 голосів. Але треба займати позицію. Мені здається, Камала Гарріс не займала позицію, щоб бути з людьми. І не бажаючи займати певну позицію, приймати рішення. І відповідно ти не отримуєш критики, але це те, що людина має приймати певне рішення. А чому не сказали, що це неправильна кандидатура? Це не в її провина, але вона просто не могла перемогти. Ми створили набагато більше покращення багатства, реновації, ніж демократи за останні кілька років. І ми хочемо далі заставатися великими. І економіка теж буде розвиватися. Я хочу, щоб країна була великою. І я погоджуюсь з цим.
About this, the unity and past presidents and past losers and winners and what they said. This is a big speech for former President Trump.
Це буде велика промова для президента, колишнього президента Трампа. І все, що казали, про що ми казали вночі, це найважливіший момент. Дуже дивно, як багато людей тут знаходиться.
I bet they're still in.
You know, I think back at the moment in Iowa, at the beginning of this process, Brett, when we were in a town hall.
Я гадаю, що на початку цього процесу ми спитали про питання відплати, що питання визнання. І він сказав, що він хотів успіх. Він хотів, щоб успіх став, власне, відплатою. Він хоче успішну Америку. І ми побачимо, що ми почуємо. Буш, один з найвидатніших президентів республіканців, казав, що треба приймати рішення. І після цих виборів люди будуть мати теплі відчуття. Це не так вже й легко, але це великий шанс просуватися далі. Коли вибрали Байдена, ми вірили в те, що він буде чудовим президентом. У нього було дуже багато знайомих серед і сенаторів, республіканців, але потім щось і сталося.
And went out for a very aggressive agenda.
Sure, there were articles about FDR.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be the next FDR. Next FDR. He's going to out Obama. Remember that?
Yep.
Well, in my view, that was he would have been if the Republicans had maintained control of the Senate. First thing that wouldn't have happened was all that wild spending that led to the inflation.
І дуже багато було витрат, що призвело до великої інфляції.
One wonders if Trump will be sober-minded about his.
I think that happened to Biden. Early on, remember he said he's going to be returned to norms, and then the historians came in and said, no, you could be bigger than FDR. So he said, it's fine, okay, I'll spend all the money. Then they caused inflation, and now.
І казали Байдену, що можна повертатися до певних норм фінансових, але на що він казав, ну добре, ми тоді можемо використати всі гроші. Тож є можливість об'єднати людей після минулих виборів.
So listen, he's going to get there because Alaska's going to be Republican, but we're not done. As far as calling states, there could be even more states that go Trump's way. This could be a massive landslide just by what we're looking.
Tremendous response to this, tremendous backlash in a lot of corners of the country.
So listen, he's going to get there because Alaska's going to be Republican, but we're not done. As far as calling states, there could be even more states that go Trump's way. This could be a massive landslide just by what we're looking at in the polls. Fox News Decision Desk count now project though Vice President Harris will win Minnesota, and her running mate Tim Walz serves as the state's governor there. That takes it up to 267 to 226. But again, Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. More Democracy 24 special coverage next.
If you have generalized myasthenia gravis, picture what life could look like with Vyvgart Hytrulo, a subcutaneous injection that takes about 30 to 90 seconds.
They are about to explode at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach. You see thousands of people waiting, and we are about to hear from the next president of the United States. He will be 45 and 47, and we're waiting for him to join the room. We'll take you there, obviously, as soon as that gets underway. In the meantime, Grady Trimble is in Michigan. Let's get a quick update just outside of Detroit. Hi, Grady.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, people were getting a little bit tired here, but then the call for Pennsylvania was like a jolt of electricity through this room at the Michigan GOP watch party, and the crowd started chanting USA. They started chanting Trump, 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 as it now appears he will be the 47th president of the United States. Now, in addition to Trump and the call for him in Pennsylvania, they're also excited about the possibility that Michigan could be the state that tips him over that magic 270 number. We're also following a very close Senate race here in Michigan, and they're feeling very confident about that as well. Republican candidate Mike Rogers looks like he could cruise to victory with the help of former President Trump. Democratic candidate Alyssa Slotkin, she went out to her crowd at her watch party at around 12:30 tonight and told them to go home and go to sleep, where here they extended this ballroom venue all through the night if they had to, and now it looks like the crowd is fired up as they await former President Trump taking the stage.
Okay, Grady, thank you. It is really important to point out how big the coattails could be tonight. Think about Bernie Moreno in Ohio. Was thought dead in the water against Sherrod Brown. He wins. We have right now at this hour, as Grady mentioned, Mike Rogers in Michigan is up. Looks like he is getting closer. We haven't made a call there yet. Hovde in Wisconsin, leading right now. Sam Brown in Nevada is closing in on Jackie Rosen. Wow. We're talking about historic numbers here. If all of these dominoes fall, you're talking about a Senate that could be 54-46, 55-45. That wasn't in the cards. That
Not at
wasn't
all.
on anybody's bingo card when you came into election night.
But these candidates have all fought really strong races, and they have all closed in a very strong way. And in fact, many of them were sort of pulling into +5, +6 in just over the last 3 weeks. So it's a fascinating part of this story. Hopefully, we'll be able to call some more of those soon.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says with these coattails, you could see the House going Republican as well, and that would be a part of this story as well. Let's go back out to Trace Gallagher on the West Coast with his panel. Hey, Trace.
Brett, thank you. Martha, thank you as well. We've got our panel, Steve Hilton, Jody Armour, Kaylee McGee-White, and John Caldwell. You're talking to your panel, Brett and Martha, and we were talking to ours, and Kaylee McGee-White was struck by the whole concept that, again, Trump was undercounted. Kaylee.
This is the third consecutive polling miss in a presidential cycle for Donald Trump, and we really need to be asking ourselves, why do they keep getting it wrong? And at this point, it is a choice. Back in 2016, you could argue that you were blindsided. You didn't expect it. You cannot say that anymore. This was predictable from the very start. And I think the reason they keep getting it wrong is because they still don't understand the average Trump voter. They cannot wrap their heads around why so many people support him. And it's because for a long time, actually for the past decade or so, Democrats in power didn't think they needed to. And even worse, they didn't want to. They didn't want to have to stoop down to understand the concerns over immigration, over the economy. And then guess what? The American people sent a very clear message tonight that you better start paying attention, and you better start paying attention soon.
We heard a lot of words, demographic. I don't know how many times we heard it, Steve Hilton, but Gianna, you talk about black voters, black male voters especially. We heard it again and again tonight, and you think it's worth talking about.
I think this is a historic night. Black men will now, those who voted for Trump, will be counted as those who helped save America from further decline. I mean, Kamala Harris has tried her best to create these accents like, you better thank a union member, all of these things that she's done to try to appeal to this community, even going on Oprah Winfrey's talk show or whatever that was to say, oh, I'll pull out my gun and shoot someone that tries to come into my house. I mean, this has become nonsensical to the point that I don't know if we're looking at Medea runs for president or not. I mean, this is outstanding what has happened from the black male perspective, and I hope the Republican Party takes note.
Yeah, and you talk about young males and younger voters, Jody Armour. You're a law professor at the University of Southern California. You know what young people are geared into. Are you surprised when you see these voter analysis numbers that young voters came out heavy for Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, young voters can sniff out a fraud. They can sniff out somebody who's chameleon-like. She changes her position according to the prevailing winds. They didn't like that. Many across the country, young students said, for me, a red line also is mass atrocities, is collective punishment, is what I see going on in the Middle East, and I see us as complicit in. So they, were saying, I'm not just that enthusiastic. Yeah. And I'm not going to get out.
I got 15 seconds for you, Steve.
I just think when I see this unfold, Trace, it is just a massive victory.
Oh, we got to jump back. Sorry, guys, back to you. We got Trump coming up.
Trace, thank you. The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s. Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president of the United States. Voters expressed deep frustration with the Biden administration, and former President Trump and the future President Trump overperformed in urban areas, particularly with men, proving that the strategy that they doubled and tripled down on over the course of the last few months absolutely succeeded and brought him back to the White House.
47th president of the United States, former President Trump now defeats Vice President Kamala Harris, who entered this race just over 100 days ago. And for Democrats, they were projecting the possibility of running the table with battleground states. David Plouffe with the Democratic campaign of Harris campaign suggested that just yesterday. Now it is possible that Donald Trump runs the table with these states and builds on a big landslide electoral win. We don't know where the popular vote is going to finish out but we do know that he will be going back to the White House, and with him, Brit Hume, will be a lot of changes because he will have been there once and will know what he wants to do.
You know, he often accounts for the fact that he had so much turnover in his first term, in his term as president, by the fact that he didn't really know Washington, and he was new to this realm that he had come to win the presidency, and he promises us that now he knows whom he wants to hire, now he knows the kind of people he wants to have around him. A lot of people are saying that means a lot of very experienced people around Washington will be ruled out, and maybe they will. But it's going to be very interesting to see the kind of people he reaches out to and reaches out for in the days and weeks ahead as he builds his administration.
We're joined by Kayleigh McEnany, Trey Gowdy, and Katie Pavlich. Kayleigh, you've been a part of the last administration. You've seen you can see the joy in all these people's faces. Think about the angst and all that this campaign has been through. And now there is the prospect of creating what you want to create in a second administration. Your thoughts, 30,000 feet of this win.
Indictments, 2 assassination attempts, an unlikely come-from-behind victory, and history is made tonight. This is a huge moment, particularly because this is a tectonic shift of the Republican Party. If all of this exit polling is true, you now have Black voters, Latino voters, young voters coming in a way that we haven't seen the party bring in a very long time, and that's due to former president, now soon-to-be current President Trump. And I just want to say this as we wait for him to come out. I remember having a conversation with Ivanka Trump in 2016 about his remarks. And before he went out to give those remarks, he had speech A and speech B. Speech A was a more boisterous Trumpian speech. Speech B was a speech full of unity. And he looked up, Ivanka said, saw the faces of crying Hillary voters. He ripped up the boisterous speech and said he wanted to heal the nation. And the first words he said were an appreciation for Hillary Clinton, for her service to our country. And then he said, now it is time for America to bind the wounds of division. And he said, we are a party of all races, creeds, and religions. That is more true tonight than it was 8 years ago. And I fully expect President Trump right now is maybe ripping up that more boisterous speech and preparing to unite the country.
It's an amazing message.
I hope Kayleigh's right. I hope you're right. And we're gonna get a chance to see here in a minute. Trey Gowdy said something on your show the other day about how one of the things that you hope also is they're a little more prepared this time. They've got a great transition team, and they're going to need it. And I hope that there are a lot of people who want to go in and be helpful.
Trey?
Yeah, I think his transition team has done a wonderful job vetting potential candidates. And to Kayleigh's point, I think a liberated Donald Trump, he's never going to be on the ballot again. This is his last term. I think, Harold, he will surprise his detractors. I think he will be not anything like what his detractors have described him as being now that he is liberated. If I'm wrong, you can hold me to that. But I think he will. A liberated Donald Trump is going to shock his detractors.
He has said that the assassination attempts had an impact on him. We saw him in many ways return to the very rough and tumble style that we've seen in Donald Trump towards the end of this. But now he will take the stage tonight as the next president of the United States, and he will not be able to run again. Yeah. And I think that is another liberating factor potentially for President Trump. Katie.
We'll never underestimate the power of unfinished business. This is a president who has caught lightning in a bottle twice, and the second time around he now has a MAGA mandate. He will have a Senate that he can use to push through his cabinet appointees who can work with him on legislation, who could potentially replace a number of justices on the Supreme Court.
He could build a wall.
He could build a wall. He has a working group in Washington, D.C. We'll see what happens with the House, but he also has been working very hard on his transition, get the right people around him. He talks about the lessons he's learned about the first time in the White House. So this is a mandate tonight for him, and I think he should get a lot of credit for doing the work on the ground, going to these states to pull these Senate candidates across the line with him.
What do you think the analysis is going to be? There's going to be a lot of time to digest all of this. We're focused now on what the incoming president is going to say. What do you think the analysis is going to be on the Democratic Party and what went wrong?
I think it's going to be agonizing. I think it's going to take a little while for consensus to form about what the party needs to do next, or what it did wrong this time. It'll be grudging at first. One can certainly imagine that if the party were smart and shrewd political voices were heeded, that there'd be some major changes in their agenda and their approach in this. And you think of the issue sets that they've tried to run on against this man that failed. They need to reconsider all of that. And I think it'll take a while. Now, our colleague and friend Mark Halperin, who's been very astute this particular cycle, he thinks there's going to be blood in the streets and people are going to be hysterical. I hope not, but it could happen.
Ben?
I am really looking forward to reading some of the stories, probably with a lot of anonymous sources amongst Democrats with the recriminations, and it's going to be fast and furious, and you will have people saying that Joe Biden should have dropped out the day after, not dropped out, but said he was not running for re-election on the day after that midterm in 2022, and either endorsed her or said, let there be a primary, and Dr. Jill Biden, there will be thoughts about her, and I wonder how chilly that White House is going to be for the next 90 days as they try to figure it out.
And let me just say that as Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris will certify the election results on January 6th.
A lot of irony in that moment. Harold, your thoughts?
This is how our country is organized, and it's a great education, I think, for people who had very high passions in this race. There are Democrats who were fervently for Joe Biden. He performed poorly during a debate, and the party switched to Kamala Harris, and there was genuine excitement, I think, built over a period of time. And some of that excitement was an aversion and almost a dislike and a disdain for Donald Trump. But I hope it's a moment that we can all grow from, because if we don't, not in a selfish, partisan way, Democrats won't progress. And I don't think you can fly and soar as a great country unless you have both wings working together. And President Trump, tonight, I'm going to be interested in that tone, Kayla. I was reminded of your words, and reminded of what you said as you shared it. I remembered that story, and I hope and pray for the country tonight that President Trump, who has every right to be joyful, every right to celebrate, will give a speech with that tone tonight that in many ways could help him do all the things that he campaigned on in this campaign.
What does this mean for the never-Trumpers who are Republican and the Lincoln Project people and Bill Kristol and people like that who seem to abandon everything they never previously believed in order to oppose Donald Trump?
Kellyanne?
We'll get to the never-Trumpers soon enough and the hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on them. Look, Donald Trump won this on policy and personality. I don't want to be remiss here. He is talking about energy independence, manufacturing, an economy where everybody is working, no new foreign wars, getting out of the entanglements we currently have, respecting and resourcing law enforcement, border patrol, military. And by the way, friends, we don't get those policies without that personality. What did we hear during the Republican primaries? I want Donald Trump's policies without his personality. Good luck with that. You don't get this strength and this resolve and this toughness. You don't get those policies without that. But I want to say this. It's on this phone that Huma Abedin placed a call 2:30 a.m. on November 9th, 2016. And on the other line was Secretary Clinton to concede the race to Donald Trump on my phone. I handed it to him, and I said to Vice President-elect Mike Pence, make sure Hillary actually concedes. She did. And President Trump was gracious to them, too. They came to the luncheon at the Capitol after the inauguration. The Obamas and the Clintons were there. I was there to see it myself. And then something just changed. The Washington Post said, let's impeach him at noon, 2 minutes after he's inaugurated. Melania wrote about this in her book. So, Harold, I hear you. I hope everybody can unify. But I got to tell you, my friend, I think it starts with your party and not mine.
Fair enough.
They had this guy in a courtroom. He's not an indoor cat. I get it. They had him in the courtroom. They have him impeached. They have him. And whether people think that was justified or not, now is a good time to respect the will of the people. Forget about us, the will of the people.
I agree with you. I'm just saying be a gracious winner and let's move the country forward. I agree. And I know you will. That was my only point.
I heard a gracious winner today when I talked to him. I really did. He's known for a while. I wrote a piece on FoxNews.com October 11th saying he's going to have a narrow landslide. I think he's felt that for a while. but he wanted to go and earn it.
And I even think the
And she
people
didn't
around
earn
him
it.
have to be gracious too. I think he will. I know
that's a
him as well
different
as you, but
issue.
I
Yeah,
think the people around him should be gracious as
That's a
well.
different question.
We can always hope.
No, well, that comes from the top.
Once more, I just want to say how much money was spent on this election. $15.9 billion with a bill.
Wow.
B, if you spend $1,000 a day for 2,740 years, that would be $1 billion. It was 16 times that. What has been spent on every race, presidency, the whole deal. $16 billion. And here we are.
What is that, a check you can write to for every American? What did you
About
say?
$50. It's about $40.
But I just want to say, every presidential race has a medium. You know, you go back to television, cable. This was, in some ways, a podcast experience of a campaign. And those are free to go on podcasts. And you wonder how much of that money really needed to be spent when there's a lot of ways to reach people. But I think it's really interesting and something we'll be talking about a lot in terms of the reach of these endorsements.
What I was struck by the final
and Musk and the rest of
the
them.
final ads where
They were excellent.
They talked about making America great again, but then ending with the assassination attempt and that fist in the air, the iconic image, and the fight, fight, fight.
Absolutely.
Warrior president.
And it worked.
Yep. Yeah, toughest son of a gun we ever saw. And that was the last note we see in that ad. And I think, for whatever you think of the guy, you got to admire that.
Yeah.
I mean, the adversity he's faced, everything we've seen in other presidencies and other political figures who've gone through all kinds of trouble are pale in comparison to what he's been put through.
No,
maybe it's time for his enemies to stop it.
Not only that, but the energy that he has is truly amazing. He's the Energizer Bunny. Let's check in with Aisha Hasni, speaking of the Energizer Bunny, at Trump headquarters in West Palm. Aisha, this has been a big night all night long. I'm sure it's really getting fever pitch now.
A big night, Brett and Martha, a long campaign for the former president, for all of us, the press corps that have been following him around now for more than a year. The crowd went absolutely nuts when Fox News called it here, and people were hugging each other, they were high-fiving each other, that people were on FaceTiming. I think they were just couldn't believe it that this happened tonight and they didn't have to wait days and days and days. We are now awaiting the former president to take the podium. He is here in the building, as is his running mate, now Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. They're backstage. We were told they were going to come out as soon as the election was called, and so now we're just waiting. We asked for a 2-minute warning. I don't know if we're going to get one, but hopefully we will see him soon. And so I just want to add a little bit of perspective, just as a Capitol Hill reporter that's been covering the former president for a while. When I came to Congress 3 years ago, talked privately with many powerful Republicans who did not want to see the former president back in Washington, and then to see the legal battles that he went through and Republicans having to stand up for him. And then he went through the primary process. As Kellyanne Conway just said, he earned it state by state by state, and then came back to Washington in the spring and went to the RNC and claimed the nomination. This is the greatest comeback that I've ever witnessed personally myself. And so I look forward to seeing what he says to the country here tonight and to his supporters. Back to you.
Aisha, thank you. The Harris team is now texting to say Vice President Harris will speak tomorrow, and that will be her response to the election results. That's all we have from the Harris team, which is really strange. I mean, from a PR perspective, Dan?
No, I also just think it's a shame, because I remember when John Kerry did this to George W. Bush in 2004, and you work so hard, and I know that they're disappointed, but you should concede and let your opponent have their election night, and let everybody that's there at Trump, at Mar-a-Lago, where are they? They're in Palm Beach.
They're in West Palm, at the convention center.
At the convention center, let them have their moment without anyone. I remember Andy Card had to come in and say, well, yes, we know we won, but we have to wait until John Kerry concedes, and then we all had to traipse back in the next morning and wait, and you don't get that moment. I don't think it's right. And
that's not to say there's not going to be a phone call. There could be a phone call tonight, but she's not going to speak public.
If there's a phone call, they have to make it public. And then nobody needs to hear from her. So if I were her, I would do it tonight.
I mean, they had that whole setup in front of Howard.
Yes, all of her people were already there.
Everybody was there, and it does feel like you want to just collect the moment and do it the way that Canadians do.
They were holding out hope. They were holding out hope that the blue wall could somehow come together, but it's going to be a red wall.
90 minutes before that, they were told to go to bed.
I got that text.
90 minutes before all of this, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the Harris campaign person, said everyone can go to bed and come back tomorrow. So
she didn't even address her own supporters. We want her to call President Trump. She didn't talk to the people who were assembled there for hours for her. It just seems very ungracious. By the way, it ended up being a very bad split screen. You probably couldn't see it in here, but they're filing out, and he's expanding his folks, and they're all excited for him. Look, I think that Kamala Harris is a sign of the times, but I think that Trump's a metaphor for the country. And when he says we don't surrender, fight, 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 we get back up, I just think I think that's what it is. The other thing I just want to say, maybe it's as a Catholic, maybe it's just as a Trump supporter, maybe it's just as a flawed human being. We all get second chances in this life. Rarely do we get a second chance as big as this one. And I have got to believe the man that I know and that Kayleigh worked with is going to work with a certain alacrity and energy to get things done very quickly. What he can do through executive order, what he could do with the Congress, bringing in the governors. No one gets a second chance this big in their lives and just puts it on the shelf like it's a trophy or a gold star. He's going to use that as a platform for good and undo some of these bad policies, and I think do even better. You know, these celebrities, these athletes, he's got job creators and innovators. He's got Elon Musk and Dana White. He's got people who make stuff, who people say, wow, there's an American success story, and he's going to bring them aboard.
So Vice President Harris has now encountered what is known as the Van Buren curse. It's the failure of the vice president to get to the presidency. Only two have done it, and that is Martin Van Buren in 1836 and George H.W. Bush in 1988. You know, the question is what the Republican Party looks like now. And Kayleigh, it's a multiracial party, to your point. It's working class, and maybe it's the future. I mean, it's Elon Musk. It is Joe Rogan and podcasts. It is, you know, there's an opportunity here on both parties to realign and change.
There are going to be a lot of conversations that go on to that end. Who is the next standard bearer for president? Is it J.D. Vance? Is he the one who picks up the torch after a 4-year legacy-defining term with the success that Kellyanne's describing? Is it J.D. Vance that picks it up? There's going to be a conversation about ground game. I mean, Kamala Harris over the weekend, they were saying they were knocking 1,000 doors a minute, and I have no reason to doubt that. It was an extraordinary ground game, but do ground games matter as much as podcasts? As much as real, authentic, viral moments like President Trump on the garbage truck, or President Trump at McDonald's, these viral moments that really captured the attention of the nation. And what does the Republican Party look like going forward? It's a broad coalition. It's an exciting coalition, and I think if President Trump manifests that working man agenda, no tax on tips, no limit on credit card interest rate, that's a working man's economic agenda. And if he makes that happen in 4 years, this party may look like this for quite some time.
I'm struck when you're talking about the authenticity part of this, because when I think about him with the French fries at McDonald's and standing up with blood on his face, fight, fight, fight. You can't fabricate. No, consultant can create those moments, Trey. Those are organic and they are authentic. And I think that is something that Kamala Harris fell really far short on in terms of the authenticity measure.
Yeah, if you had told me that a billionaire from New York would be able to connect with middle America, I would have questioned that. To my friend, the gentleman from Tennessee, autopsies are painful, especially when the patient's still alive. I wonder what the Democrat Party is going to go through in the next weeks and months, because this was a loss that I don't think anyone saw coming, not to this magnitude. So what does the autopsy look like if you're a Democrat? It's painful, but you have to have one. How did you lose, and how did you lose this sound?
The easiest way to do it for them would be to simply say, if Joe Biden hadn't clung to the job, clung to the nomination, and hidden his condition with a lot of help, they could have had an open nominating process and gotten a more attractive nominee who would have been freer to walk away from Biden policies and would have had a better shot. I mean, I think that's the easiest, simplest solution, which But I'm not sure that's where they'll go. But that makes
I don't
sense
think
to me.
you can pass over an African-American female, which is a very loyal constituency for the Democrat Party. I don't see how they could have passed over.
But if he left the office and she'd run, she would have been put through a different process and would have had competition, and the whole thing would have been different. You know?
But I mean, Harold, you have a Democratic Party that's pretty old. I mean, you have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden.
You know, you got Andy Beshear, you got Josh Shapiro, you got Gretchen
that's a
Whitmer.
different kind of Democrat, and that is not the progressive Democrat that wins in a primary. So is it going to be a change in your party?
Well, we nominated a Bill Clinton and a Barack Obama who were not from
the old days
party. So I think we'll do that. Look, tonight, what happened this evening and what's happened over the last year has been described. There were those on this panel who didn't believe that this resurrection could have occurred. So if this can happen, things are possible in politics if you're willing to change and willing to have courage and determination. And whatever Democrats or anybody want to say about this guy who's been elected our president, he personifies that courage and determination and persistence. So I think Trey, you were asking a serious question, and Britt gave a very serious answer. I think that's going to be part of the answer. And we've got to look long and hard about whether or not the way we campaign sometimes with identity politics at the end, is that the right way to do it? But before you get there, you got to get a purpose and a message. And we'll get there. And we've got a long history of figuring these things out as a nation, as a party, and we'll figure it out this time.
So the carnage speech got a lot of attention at the inauguration. Do we think that this speech,
I was going way back.
we're actually told that the teleprompters have been removed from the stage, so we could be in for a long haul here. We don't know. But what do you think? You know, he's coming, but there may not be.
I'm saying he goes off the teleprompter anyway. But he, the other night at the Al Smith dinner, he was upset that there were teleprompters, because he doesn't want to use them.
Right. So, Dana, what does this speech look like?
This one right now?
Yeah.
I think look, I don't know. He's one of the most unpredictable people, too. So I think that's why we're all here, and I'm wide awake, and I've been awake for almost 24 hours now. And I am curious to see. I think I wasn't just thinking about this speech. I'm thinking about the inauguration speech, which would be 8 years since Carnage speech. He has a wide range of the types of speeches that he can give. If you think even within a speech, there's range. If you think about the RNC convention, it started off with like, oh, wow, yeah. And then after a while, like, wow, he's still talking. It was like so long, and it kind of got off script, and people thought, oh, he kind of lost opportunity. But he didn't. I think if you look at these people who would take off work, drive somewhere in the middle of the night to go and get in line, to wait for hours, to then stay at a rally for hours, and part of the things he has done as well is created this camaraderie amongst people so that you could go to a place where you're not afraid to wear your red MAGA hat, and you could say, I'm not the crazy one. I'm not the only one who thinks the way that I do. I can actually have friends, and that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be outreach to the other side. I believe in love thy neighbor. I love all of that. But he has created something special here, so I kind of want him to take a victory lap tonight. I don't think this is necessarily the moment for unity, especially when she won't even concede and give him the night to celebrate.
Kellyanne, you were looking at the popular vote. He's still up, and could finish up.
And part of that is because he did run up the totals in places I was looking at, even the rural counties in Pennsylvania. He was going to win them by significant double digits, but he won them that much more. I think running up the totals in Florida, which was a swing state not that long ago, over 1.1 million votes or so. Haley, right, your home state. And this is, look, I think that when the Democrats take a look at this candidacy, it's not going to be that she had too much time, not enough time. She's just a flawed candidate. She doesn't speak well. She doesn't work hard. I'm not being mean or partisan. I don't know why the country would have rewarded this candidate with the big job when she couldn't make the case what she does as vice president that affects our lives in a positive way. She was given that opportunity. I personally like to thank the women of The View tonight for asking this question, for having her on. Oprah, we see you, and so on and so forth. People who thought they were doing her a favor because they made her something she's not. It's the opposite for Trump. They make him something he's not. Take that one word, take that one line, take that cherry pick this, that, the other. You never get the essence. I go back, does everybody remember 5 years ago, so Laurel and Yanny, or what color dress? You hear Laurel, I hear Yanny. You see the blue dress, I see yellow dress. We were all looking at the same thing. That's the way Donald Trump is in this country. There are people who look exactly the same person, and they see two different vistas. I think it's time that we try to see one. Look, I don't know who said it earlier. I'm a little worried about the reaction of the Democrats and the common people here. I'm very worried. I think that there are a lot of unhinged people across the political spectrum, and we gave very little quarter to how many anti-Kamala voters are out there. I don't want to hear the words racism and sexism. It's eyesight and hearing. We were listening and watching her. And I'm very worried that we've not talked a lot about how violent people may be and angry because she lost. Right. I'm afraid of that.
Right. I mean, I can just imagine thinking about The View, and a week or so ago, they were saying, you know, what is wrong with someone who would vote for him?
Michelle Obama.
And Joe Scarborough saying, you know, we weren't raised like this. Who raised these people? So I can only imagine what tomorrow is going to look like.
You know, I will say when we talk about The View, you know, what comes to mind is we mentioned the carnage speech that President Trump gave at his inauguration. And my mind automatically went to the unity speech that Biden gave, and he mentioned unity a half dozen times. But when you think about what we got over 4 years, there was the garbage comment that didn't come in isolation. There were all kinds of comments. Neanderthal was one of the first words he used to describe those who opposed his COVID edicts. The Mark Cuban comment, he was an official surrogate of the Kamala campaign. And for, you know, as mean as some of President Donald Trump's tweets have been and people have problems with it, one thing I've challenged Democrats to find is one example of him disparaging the country, half of the country, and that's something he has not done. And so I expect you'll hear a unifying tone, and I expect you're going to see a very successful presidency and one untethered maybe from some of the things that were holding him back. What comes to mind is an Oval Office meeting that we had where Dr. Fauci was urging him not to open the country. And I watched President Trump fight vociferously, saying people are losing their jobs. We must open the country. He wanted to do it sooner than he did. I think a Donald Trump who goes with his instincts is going to be a Trump that ultimately leads a very successful country in second term.
You know, Martha, Joe Biden mentioned the word unity more in his inaugural address than any president, I think, except one. If he's serious about that, he'll pardon Donald Trump. He'll also pardon his son. And then he'll put pressure on Georgia and New York to end this lawfare. If there is any silver lining tonight, it is that lawfare actually helps the person that you are trying to go after. We need a justice system. The lady needs to wear a blindfold for a reason. We got to stop this prosecution of our political enemies.
I mean, literally, his polls
went up. Will be the Attorney General.
Absolutely.
We need a really solid Attorney General.
John Ratcliffe.
Can do it.
Sorry, John. Sorry, John. I apologize. Sorry.
There will be a lot of talk about cabinet members, Treasury Secretary, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. You've got Tom Cotton, Mike Pompeo. You have.
Well, you also have a Republican bench. And sometimes, like you were saying, that the Democratic Party is quite old right now. There's not a great bench, although there are some, and especially, but when you take governors out of states, then you leave a hole, and then you have to build up that bench back up. But the Republican bench is pretty strong right now.
There you see Doug Burgum and Vivek Ramaswamy, Steve Wynn, his lovely wife Andrea. So people are there waiting for the former president. Britt would like to know where he is.
He's watching us.
Can we say tonight, though, Harold, that the melting pot still works? That Hispanics, Black Americans, working class Americans, you know, standing up, asking what their government is going to do, asking their government to see them and their concerns, that it works, that this is American democracy in our republic.
The process works. I think as we get a final account of the numbers and the coalition that President Trump won with this time, I think it'll be one that will be for the history books. President Bush, I think, got 40+% of the Hispanic vote. George Bush, W. Bush, and it looks like President, at least the preliminary numbers suggest that. But as much as we talk about the unconventional aspect of this was conventional also. People believed him. He resonated with voters. He resonated with communities, rural, communities, urban communities, suburban communities across the country. And I congratulate him tonight. I didn't want him to win, but I congratulate him on his victory and wish him the best in celebration, to understand that what we're really celebrating is the greatest experiment to have ever come to existence. It'll celebrate 250 years of its own existence in 2026. So those are my thoughts, Brett.
I'm struck by the issue of abortion, because it was talked about so much, and it was presented as if, you're a woman and you are not going to support her, then you hate all women. They said that husbands, were hateful towards their wives and the women in their lives if they didn't support this candidate. And I think it just goes to show that kind of, manipulating, it doesn't win.
And narrow casting us based on our gender. I think Kamala Harris was talking to us from the waist down, and I think Donald Trump was talking to us from the waist up as well. That's where my eyes, my ears, my heart, my brain, and my big mouth are. So, you got to talk to the woman in full. It's as if she doesn't know anything about the economy, or she doesn't care about what's going on in Ukraine or Israel or with Iran, or can't do the math on her grocery bill. It's an insult. Of course people care, but we care about many things. Just as we are not monolithic in life, we're not monolithic thinkers politically. But Martha, something else happened. They put these ballot initiatives on to try to gin up turnout for the Democrat. And they did that, and it kind of backfired. Look at this popular vote. And it backfired. The other thing is, if you've got 10 abortion ballot initiatives, you can vote your conscience on abortion, and you can vote separately or similarly for president. The presidential race was not a proxy for your position on abortion. By the way, somebody sent me the statistics. Over $500 million spent on ads about abortion. $500 million in this country out of $16 billion Brett is talking about. $37 million for pro-lifers. The rest was the pro-choicers. It's just insane amount of money.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about markets tonight and the betting markets. Trey, at this point, it's at about 66% that Republicans hold on to the House as they're ticking down the possibilities, and they look at these coattails with not only the popular vote, but what could be and is shaping up to be an electoral college landslide. Should he control the White House, the Senate, and the House, like he did at the beginning in 2016, the possibilities open to a lot of things.
Yeah, I was there in 2016, and we had everything but an agenda. That mistake will not be made this time. He will deal with the border. He will deal with tax is coming up. There is a plan being formulated by Mike Johnson right now, and John Thune or John Cornyn or whoever becomes the majority leader. The mistakes of 2016, I think we were surprised that he won. I'm not saying he was surprised, but others were surprised. The other thing I will remind you, Brett, when he won in 2016, you recall what he said about Hillary Clinton. She's been through enough. There was a lot of pressure to prosecute her. He said she's been through enough. I wish my Democrat friends would say the same thing about him and say enough is enough. Drop the cases in New York and Georgia. Biden shouldn't wait on Donald Trump to end these federal cases. They should be ended by Joe Biden. If you really want unity, then quit using lawfare to divide the country. Quit using the justice system to try to win political races.
We are still following these Senate races, and as we wait for the former president, by the way, there's Nigel Farage there talking in the crowd there. Britt, this is remarkable in that some of these races were not even suspected to be close, expected to be close. Mike Rogers, he was a long shot at one point against Alyssa Slotkin.
Good candidate.
In Michigan, good candidate.
Strong candidate.
Former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
Right.
But Sam Brown was left essentially, he was not going to win.
He was not on anybody's list.
Nope.
Likely switch.
Not getting much money or attention.
No, but I think he's a competent candidate. Once again, we have.
By the way, there's Sam Brown right there, 48.1 to 47.2, 80% in over Jackie Rosen.
How much the news are understanding that candidate quality matters.
Yeah.
In this cycle, Republicans in the Senate races in particular fielded some pretty darn good candidates that gave them a shot in states where Republicans often face an uphill battle. And the fact that, it looks like it won't be just a squeaker, there might be a little margin there for Republicans, and the Senate is testament to that.
Let's see where Wisconsin is, guys. Can we put up Hovde in Wisconsin?
Пані та панове, зустрічайте обраного президента Дональда Джей Трампа, перша леді Меланія Трамп та родина Трампів разом із віце-президентом Джей Ді Венсом, другою леді Ушею Венс і разом з командою та членами штабу. Дякую. Я хочу подякувати вам усім. Все це чудово. Це все наші друзі. У нас тут тисячі друзів. Надзвичайний рух. Ніхто не бачив такого руху раніше. І, якщо чесно, на мою думку, це був найчудовіший політичний рух. Ніколи такого ще не було. І тепер цей рух досягне нового рівня, стане ще більш важливим, тому що ми будемо допомагати нашій країні зцілитися. Допоможемо Україні зцілитися. Наша країна потребує допомоги, дуже сильно потребує допомоги. Ми поправимо наші кордони, поправимо все, що треба поправити в нашій країні. Ми залишилися в історії з певної причини сьогодні ввечері. І причина саме в тому, що ми подолали перепони. Ніхто не думав, що це буде можливо. І ми досягли неймовірного політичного результату. Подивіться, що сталося. Просто з глузду можна з'їхати. Політична перемога. Наша країна такої не бачила раніше. Ніколи. Хочу подякувати американському народу. Це надзвичайно велика честь бути обраним вашим 47-м президентом, вашим 45-м президентом. Також я буду боротися за вас, за ваші родини, за ваше майбутнє. Кожного дня я буду боротися за вас. Кожний вдих, який я буду робити, буде заради цього. І я не відпочиватиму поки я не зроблю Америку сильною, не зроблю її процвітаючою. І це буде дійсно золота епоха для Америки. Це чудова перемога для американського народу, яка дозволить нам зробити Америку знову великою. І штати, такі як Північна Кароліна, Джорджія, Пенсильванія, Вісконсин, які були місцем битви. Зараз ми також перемагаємо у Мічигані, Аризоні, Неваді, Аласці. Це принесе нам щонайменше 315 голосів виборників. Однак набагато легше робити це, як це зробили мережі, як сказали. Однак не було іншого шляху, ніж ця перемога. Не було іншого шляху до перемоги. Голос народу, голос за популярного політика. Дякую. Дякую вам дуже. Дуже добре було перемогти, дійсно отримати голос народу. Зараз ми відчуваємо любов у цій залі. Надзвичайні люди стоять поряд зі мною. Ці люди зі мною пройшли весь шлях. Вони були просто надзвичайними. Ми вас зробимо дуже щасливими. Ви будете пишатися своїм голосом. Ви колись подивитеся у минуле і подумаєте, це був один з дуже важливих моментів мого життя, коли я проголосував за цю групу людей. Не тільки за президента, а за всю цю групу надзвичайних людей. Америка дала нам безпрецедентний сильний мандат. Ми знову маємо контроль над Сенатом. І в Монтані, Неваді, Техасі, в Огайо, Мічигані, Вісконсині. Також співдружність Пенсильванії. Ми всі виграли за допомогою руху МАГА. І ці випадки, всі ці випадки, ми працювали з сенаторами. Це були важкі перегони. Кількість перемог у Сенаті просто була надзвичайною. Ми робили телемітинги, іноді 2-3, і просто було неймовірно дивитися на всі ці перемоги. Ніхто цього не очікував. Я просто хотів вам дуже подякувати за це. У вас чудові сенатори, чудові нові сенатори. І також видається, що ми будемо продовжувати контролювати також і Палату представників. І я хочу подякувати Майклу Дженсену. Він надзвичайно добре працює. Також хочу подякувати моїй прекрасній дружині Меланії, першій леді. У якої книжка, яка на першому місці в топі продажів по країні? Уявіть собі. Вона теж дуже багато зусиль докладає для того, щоб допомагати людям. Хочу їй подякувати. Хочу подякувати всій моїй родині, моїм надзвичайним дітям. Вони дійсно надзвичайні діти. Ми всі дякуємо своїм дітям. Всі думають тут, що їхні діти чудові. Так і має бути. Однак Дон, Ерік, Іванка, Тіфані, Берон, Клара, Джеральд, Кімберлі, Майкл. Дякую вам усім.
Моєму
свекру Він чудовий. Нам дуже не вистачає матері Меланії Малії. Вона була би дуже щасливою стояти на цій сцені. Вона була чудовою жінкою, гарною ззовні і всередині, чудовою жінкою. Я хочу першим привітати нашого чудового, я можу сказати зараз, обраного віце-президента Сполучених Штатів Америки. І його абсолютно надзвичайну і гарну дружину Ушвенс. І він енергійний чоловік. Піти в ворожий табір. Ви знаєте, що ворожий табір має певні мережі. І багато кому це не подобається. А він каже, куди йти? На CNN, на він єдина людина, яка абсолютно любить ходити на канали суперників. Ходи сюди, скажи кілька слів. Пане президенте, я дуже ціную, що ви дозволили мені приєднатися до вас на цьому надзвичайному шляху, що ви мені довірили це місце. І ми щойно спостерігали найвеличніше повернення у політичній історії Сполучених Штатів Америки.
And under President Trump's leadership, we're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams, for the future of your children.
Команда президента Трампа ніколи не перестане боротися за вас, за ваше майбутнє ваших дітей. І після найбільшого політичного повернення ми спостерігатимемо найбільше економічне повернення під керівництвом президента Трампа в історії Сполучених Штатів Америки. Дякую вам дуже. Виявляється, я вибрав добре віце-президента. Спочатку мене критикували, однак я знав, що він непоганий вибір, найкраще, який можна зробити. Ми за 4 роки перетворимо нашу країну, зробимо її чудовою, дуже особливою. Наша країна втратила свою особливість, нам потрібно знову її перетворити на щось особливе. Ми зробимо її такою великою, потенційно найвеличніша країна у світі, наша країна. Нам треба зараз дуже тяжко працювати, щоб все це повернути. І я не знаю, якщо б нам довелося чекати довше, чи ми змогли би. Нам потрібно буде закрити ці всі кордони. Ми хочемо, щоб люди поверталися, однак вони мають повертатися легально. Я також хочу виразити свою надзвичайну вдячність Сюзі та Крісу за всю ту роботу, яку ви зробили. Сюзі, Кріс, ходіть сюди. Сюзі подобається залишатися в тіні. Ми називаємо її крижана леді. Сюзі подобається стояти на задніх рядах, однак насправді вона не позаду. Ми цього не очікували, однак я хочу подякувати, очевидно, президенту Трампу за цей шлях, чудовий шлях, і він надзвичайний кандидат, він буде надзвичайним 47-м президентом. І хочу подякувати команді, найкращій команді, і, звичайно, навіть моїй керівниці Сюзі Уоллес найкращій. Дякую. І дякую, Сюзі. Всі виглядають чудово, всі виглядають дуже особливо.
Кого ви просите покликати? Я скажу вам, у нас нова зірка. Народилася нова зірка Ілон. Ілон чудовий. Ми сьогодні сиділи разом. Ми 2 тижні провели разом у Філадельфії, в різних частинах Пенсильванії під час кампанії. Він ракету запустив 2 тижні тому, і я побачив, що коли ракета піднімалася, вона була надзвичайно білою, а коли вона поверталася, вона не так гарно виглядала. Уже красиво, і я спитав, що з фарбою, а він сказав, що ніколи фарба не витримувала такого пекла, як у космосі. Однак ракета спускалася і спускалася, ми бачили цей вогонь, і раптом Ілон якраз це може зробити. Я розкажу вам, вчора я говорив по телефону, не було звуку, я говорив з дуже важливою людиною, він зараз присутній тут, дуже важливий чоловік, один з найважливіших людей, я би сказав, власне кажучи, в Україні. Однак я президентом виглядало, що можливо я знову буду президентом, але я попросив його зачекати, тому що коли знаєте, ви маєте шанс знову стати президентом, вони чекають. І я подивився на екран, я подивився на цю надзвичайну річ, яка спускалася, яка виглядала, як ніби вона кудись. Я думав, що я кіно дивлюсь. Я поклав телефон, і я 45 хвилин не піднімав слухавку. Він чекав, це важливий чоловік. Однак космічний корабель спустився, я бачив ці двигуни, вогонь. Здавалося, що він зіткнеться з землею. Однак настільки ніжно спустилася ця ракета. І земля ніби обійняла його, як ви тримаєте дитинку вночі. І це було дуже гарно. Я подзвонив Ілону і спитав, чи це він, а він сказав так. А я спитав, хто ще може це зробити? Чи може Росія? Ні. Чи може Китай? Ні. Чи може хтось у Штатах, крім тебе? Ні. Ніхто не може. І за це саме, Ілоне, я тебе і люблю. Це все чудово. І у нас стався також трагічний ураган, особливо в Північній Кароліні. Дуже високо піднялася вода, утворилися озера з нічого, поля перетворилися на пісок. І люди з Північної Каролини попросили мені, чи було би можливо вам хоч якось поговорити з Ілоном Маском. Нам потрібні старлінки. Я спитав, що таке старлінка. Вони сказали, це засіб комунікації. І я сказав, Ілоне, всі дроти не працюють. У тебе є щось, що називається Starlink. Так, це так. А що це в біса таке? Це комунікаційна система дуже добра. Я сказав, Ілоне, їм дуже потрібні Starlink у Північній Кароліні. І вони настільки швидко їх доставили, і це врятувало багато життів. Він врятував багато життів. Ну, він супергеній, він має певні особливості. Маємо захищати наших особливих геніїв. У нас їх не так багато. У нас є також Брайс тут десь трошки вищий за мене. Чемпіон США. Де він? Брайсон, де він? Він засоромився виходити на сцену. Він якраз м'ячі б'є, напевно. Він піднімається. Брайсоне, а подивіться на нього. Чудова кар'єра у нього, чудовий відкритий чемпіонат США. І також у нас є ще дехто. міцний чоловік. Тож ніхто не хотів, знаєте, трохи жорсткий спорт. Однак я тоді пішов, я сказав, що це найжорсткіший спорт, який я бачив. Мені він почав подобатися, і йому він подобається. Ніхто краще спортом не займається. Він дуже мотиваційний. Насправді, і у нього одна з найбільш успішних спортивних компаній за всі часи. І я також хочу попросити його до слова, тому що людям дуже подобається, коли він говорить. Ніхто не заслуговує цього більше, ніж він, і ніхто не заслуговує цього більше, ніж його родина. Ось що стається, коли машина працює. Його не можна зупинити, він не здається, він найбільш стійка робоча людина, яку я бачив за все своє життя. Пані та панове, він на це заслуговує, вони на це заслуговують як родина. Я хочу швидко подякувати певним людям, хлопцям Мел. Нарешті я хочу подякувати сильному і надзвичайному Джо Рогану. Дякую, Америко. І доброї вам ночі. Та надзвичайний чоловік. Однак більше все я хочу подякувати мільйонам тяжко працюючих американців, які завжди були серцем та душею цього чудового руху. Ми дуже багато пройшли разом, і сьогодні ви також були з нами і допомогли нам здобути перемогу, особливу перемогу, якої раніше не було. Ми вам все повернемо сторицею. Ми будемо тяжко працювати для того, щоб все змінилося на 180 градусів усіма можливими способами. І назавжди цей день запам'ятають як день, коли американський народ повернув собі контроль над своєю країною. Тож я хочу тільки що сказати від імені цієї групи людей, ці люди, які тяжко працюють, надзвичайні люди, і ми можемо додати ще кілька імен. Роберт Кеннеді молодший, він допомагатиме зробити Америку знову здоровою. Чудовий чоловік. Він має на увазі все, що він обіцяє. Він хоче певні речі зробити, ми йому це дозволимо. Однак я казав Бобі, залиш мені нафту. У нас є нафта та газ, рідке золото. У нас більше, ніж в Саудівської Аравії, більше, ніж в Росії. Бобі, тримайся осторонь рідкого золота, а так розважайся. Ми будемо знижувати податки, ми можемо зробити те, що ніхто не зміг зробити. Ніхто не зміг би. У Китаю немає того, що є у нас. У нас є надзвичайні люди також. Я думаю, що це, напевно, найважливіше. Ця кампанія, новинна кампанія, вона також була історичною. Значним чином найширша, найбільш об'єднана коаліція. Вони ніколи не бачили такого в американській історії. Молоді та старі, чоловіки та жінки, міста та села. І я дивився на це. І аналіз також бачив про людей, які з нас проголосували. Ніхто не бачив такого раніше. Вони належали до профсоюзів, або не належали. Американці арабського походження, чорні американці мусульмани, всі. І це дуже гарно, таке історичне об'єднання з усією різною історією. Американці, знаєте, ми партія здорового глузду. Ми хочемо мати кордони, безпеку. Ми хочемо, щоб діти були у безпеці, чудову освіту. Ми хочемо сильне військо. Однак в ідеалі ми не будемо його використовувати. Нам війни, ми їх не хочемо, вони нам не потрібні. Ми подолали іділ. І всі кажуть, що я почну війну, я не буду починати війну, я зупиню війни. Однак також це надзвичайна перемога демократії та свободи. Разом ми досягнемо надзвичайного майбутнього для нашого народу. Розкриємо надзвичайний доленосний потенціал Америки. Я не думаю, що я можу якийсь ще передвиборчий мітинг в житті провести. Ми, здається, провели їх 900 за цією кампанією. Від собі. 901 мітинг, щось таке приблизно, дуже багато мітингів. Всі казали, багато хто казав, це не ж останній мітинг. Однак зараз ми переходимо до чогось набагато більш важливого, тому що мітинги ми використали для того, щоб опинитися у цьому положенні, з якого ми зможемо справді допомогти нашій країні. Ми зробимо країну кращою, ніж вона була будь-коли. Багато людей мені казало, що Бог врятував мене з якоїсь причини. І цією причиною є те, що я маю врятувати нашу країну, відновити велич Америки. І зараз ми разом будемо реалізовувати цю місію. Це не буде легко, ця задача не буде легкою, однак я використаю всю енергію, весь дух, який є у мені. Ви довірили мені надзвичайну роботу. Іншої такої роботи немає. Найважливіша робота у світі. І під час мого чудового першого президентського строку я керувався таким принципом, що обіцянки, які даються, вони виконуються. І нічого мене не зупинить від того, щоб я зробив Америку знову безпечною, сильною і великою. Це благородна мета, справедлива мета. Давайте залишимо в минулому розділення останніх 4 років. Час єднатися. Ми будемо намагатися, нам потрібно намагатися, і ми успішно зможемо об'єднатися. Я це бачив під час першого президентського строку, коли ми ставали все більш успішні, люди почали єднатися. Успіх, він нас приведе до того, щоб бути разом, і ми всі маємо поставити нашу країну на перше місце, принаймні на якийсь період часу, поки ми її полагодимо, тому що разом ми дійсно зможемо Америку зробити знову великою для усіх американців. Тож ще раз хочу вам сказати, яка це велика честь, хочу вам подякувати, я вас не підведу, майбутнє Америки буде більшим, сміливішим, багатшим, безпечнішим, сильнішим, ніж будь-коли раніше. Боже, благослови вас, Боже, благослови Америку. Дякую вам усім.
was